All right, it's time for Straight Up. Let's get ready to rock and roll. Good evening to all of you. We'll be right back.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cock-a-crow, dagabag, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga, jackass yard for fetchy load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side, a Rexy and Rover. From the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell some picnic a there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurman Buran Nancy, even Watamuma. Oh, Ligan, Moongazer, Massa Kurman Buran Nancy, even Watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Kellyan Mall, 162 Lamaha Street, in Georgetown between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a Commissioner of Oaths and a Justice of the Peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins Firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins Firm.
All right. Hey, guess what? My name is Mark Benchap. Welcome to Straight Up. We will rock and roll for 1 hour this evening. It's Thursday. And what is it? We have lots of things we want to talk about this evening. But if you share the link, spread the word, invite your friends, your relatives, and everybody. Just invite them, even the folks at Andrew's Supermarket. Invite them to be on with us this evening. I was tempted to respond to Barrett Jagdeo's propaganda today, and I really do mean it. To respond to Barrett Jagdeo's propaganda today about the budget, the anti-poor people's budget, the anti-Guyanese budget. That's what it's about. So no matter what Barrett Jagdeo steps out to talk about, at the end of the day, this is what's happening. Let me just, because I didn't really want to touch on this here, because like I said, we have far better things to deal with. But this guy, Barrett Jagdeo, he is more than disrespectful to Guyanese. And I'll tell you guys why. Because this guy thinks that all the people that he deals with, the ones that he deal with at the office of the president and maybe at Freedom House, that all of them attended IFLAT Secondary School, right? So he believes that the ordinary citizens have attended IFLAT Secondary University. We know it's not in existence, so maybe we can ask the guy who sits there as Barrett's puppet to explain or to tell us where the University of IFLAT is located. But this guy, Barrett Jagdeo, thinks that people are dummies, right? He sat there, not a large audience, but he sat there and spreading the propaganda with a straight face, about the budget. I want, please, Lemon, take this guy off the screen. Take him right away. Take him off the screen. So now, here is what's happening with this guy. This guy believes that all Guyanese are dotish, that we don't have sense, and that he sat there and whatever comes out of his mouth, right? Sorry about that. Whatever comes out of his mouth, he believes that people are that gullible that they're going to run away with it and they're going to believe him, right? No, not this time. All of the things that he sat there, tried to sell this propaganda, sell his anti-poor people's budget. One thing was going through my mind, as it was percolating through my mind. I'm like, this guy couldn't be serious. For 20-something years, they were there. And 12 plus of those years, Barrett Jagdeo is it the same Barra Jagdeo that's talking that wrecked the goddamn country inside out? Is talking about a budget now and wants to package it as though, oh gosh. But it's for the coalition folks for them to respond to Barra Jagdeo, right? I'm not sure if they did that already. I'm just not sure if they did that already. All right? I just don't. I couldn't take it. Under Barra Jagdeo's presidency, value-added tax was 16%. And I just thought I'd repeat this for you guys. 16% value-added tax, burdensome, blood-sucking value-added tax imposed by who? Not David Granger, not the coalition, imposed by who? Barrett, Jagdeo, and the PPP. All the other things, they weren't concerned about pensioners. They weren't concerned about school kids. They weren't concerned about absolutely nothing concerning the ordinary working class people. They weren't concerned about that. But Jagdeo rushed to hold a press conference because he got Bazadi. And you know what happened when Jagdeo gets Bazadi? He tries to put everybody into his black book. And you know, once you go into his black book, he is done with you, right? That's Barra Jagdeo. Ask Chris Gale. Ask the others who got into his black book. His small black book with huge pages, his black book. Good evening to all of you. Enough of that guy. That guy is, something is wrong with it. So he sat there, right? And this guy, Jagdeo, this guy sat there and talked about how the opposition MPs, they were presenting in their presentation, and he just wanted to give a nice civil. I'm like, this guy couldn't be serious. This guy Barra Jagdeo is a nutcase. He couldn't be serious, talking about civility and all these things and professionalism. Barra Jagdeo? It's not like he's a born again or anything. Barra Jagdeo is talking about that. Look, the opposition MPs did a darn good job. You know, every elections, every budget and so forth, the opposition MPs, some of them we haven't seen or heard from in a while. They're there to present, make their budget presentation, but I give them good scores. I give them good marks for that. Even for some who were absent, they showed up. And they gave a good presentation. And Barra Jagdeo got giddy about that presentation. He got very, very giddy. Very giddy. I don't know. What I wanted you guys to yes, the same Barra Jagdeo that sat there. And for those of you who don't know, especially the foreigners who are looking, who don't know, but when he presents himself, you might think, wow, No, he's not. This is what he is. This is what he's about. Lemon, let's go.
Right across Ghana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal. Free up the country, you're undemocratic. They're going to face a different situation right across the country. When they come
to... give me a break. You see the difference, right? And I said to them, anyways, enough of that guy and his nonsense. People are punishing people, throughout the country. Starvation. Yeah, people are starving. Even their own supporters. This has nothing to do with coalition people. I'm not here to just beat a coalition drum. The coalition got people could beat their drum. I hope they beat their drum. Really, really tough drums. But the small man, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their ethnicity, they're feeling the squeeze. They're feeling the squeeze. Look, a quick 30 seconds from this guy. Pressure, pressure. And for those of you who don't understand, he's talking about pressure in the country, pressure in Guyana. Billions of dollars, oil, gold, you name it. But pressure, pressure. Listen to this woman. Might sound a bit, not, I wouldn't want to say comical, but it put a smile on your face. But it's exactly how people are feeling across the country. Listen to this woman.
Right about now, I'm living in Guyana right about now. I aim in Guyana no more. I think I gonna go and get me visa and I go fly out and I gonna go to Barbados and I gonna relax myself because I aim in Guyana no more. I aim in Guyana. I gotta go Barbados. I fly now go Barbados. Things cheap there.
I mean, look, that's her way of expressing herself and about the country. Cost of living, high, high, high. I mean, she's expressing herself. It might put a smile on your face, but that's how she feels. She is talking on behalf of hundreds of thousands of Guyanese. That is what she's doing. Hundreds of thousands of Guyanese she's talking on behalf of. Look, here's what. I have this guy coming up shortly. Yep, Paul Slowe, retired. Yeah, retired assistant police commissioner. He is going to be on with us. I want to ask him some questions about the accident. Two young people lost their lives. He will be coming up shortly tonight, right? Tonight he will be on the show, Mr. Paul Slowe. But we're not done yet. Cost of living. Lemon, let's get her back.
Right about now, I'm living in Guyana right about now. I aim in Guyana no more. I think I gonna go and get me visa and I gonna fly out and I gonna go to Barbados and I gonna relax myself because I aim in Guyana no more. I aim in Guyana. I gotta go Barbados. I fly now go Barbados. Things cheap there.
You know, I mean, you guys might be smiling, but that's how people feel. The budget hasn't done anything for them. It's not going to do anything for them. It's the big boys, the real big boys in office, right? Here, again, here's my good friend Cheryl Thomas Went.
Making the short video for send to you and the viewers and listeners. I'll know we punishing in Guyana. Punishing. Rice gone up, sugar gone up, flour gone up, cost of living just gone up, gas gone up from 3,400 to 3,800. Real hungry days under this installed PPP government. Real hungry days we gone back to. Guyanese? Oh! Real hungry days, real hungry days.
Real hungry days indeed. And not one ethnic group, not one set of people who might belong to a political party or their political affiliation. Everyone. Take a look at Port Morant Market this weekend. Go to Port Morant Market. Go to Skeldon Market. I'm not even sure. Or even go to Blackbush Market. Or right in Georgetown. Go to Stabroek. Go to Border. Go to the Penitence Market. Go to Mackenzie Market, Wisma Market. Just go around, whether it's in Bartica or wherever, and hear what the ordinary folks have to say. Crabman is not the only one. The other lady who wants a visa to go to Barbados is not the only one. Cheryl Thomas Went, they're not the only ones. Crabman.
Pressure boss pipe. Pressure boss pipe, boy. Umaninza Guyana de underwater. The wrong. Sorry. Umaninja Guyana de under pressure. Walk. Bangamere is $400 pong. Trout $400 pong. Oh, you go buy that sell back by. I just come and tell about me buy me little fish and mix with me little crab and sell. Thing that just raise. Thing just double the price, just double. Oh, but no.
Everything gone up. Every single thing gone up. But yet, Barajagdeo has no shame. Throughout his press conference, like some little angel sat there. Anyways, we all know that he's not an angel. But look at what is happening there. This girl, according to this lady, according to the Village Voice, La Penitence wanted for money laundering. Probably she's from La Penitence, right? Wanted for money laundering. Look at her. I'm sure if you see her, if you probably go where she lives, but she's wanted for money laundering. Nobody's going after those guys in the private sector commission, some of them there. No one is going after the big drug lords and all these individuals, these questionable businessmen and so forth. And no one is going after those people and saying that they're wanted for money laundering. But look at this woman. She's from La Penitence, put a big photograph. She's wanted for money laundering. Wanted for money laundering. I don't know. But the guys, the folks who are really into money laundering, they're not the police force. They wouldn't put a wanted bulletin for them. They wouldn't put that wanted bulletin for them. All right. So we have coming up shortly, Mr. Paul Slowe. And Mr. Paul Slowe is with us this evening. We are preparing for him. But before we do, this guy, look at him. Look at him, Prasad. Some Prasad. He get away, right? He get away from Lusignan prison. He get away. He didn't escape. These guys got to stop using these terms, escape. He get away. He gonna take a lime. They're going to catch him. They're going to put him back inside, and he all right. I don't know what he get away for, or who, if anybody allowed him out or whatever. I don't know, but he get away. All right? So, I don't know. He get away. Mr. Paul Slowe, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Mark.
Yeah, good evening, and I am happy that you are with us this evening on 107.1 FM. How have you been, sir?
Well, I've been good. I can't complain.
All right, good. You can't complain. Let's begin right away with this guy. Get away. What's going on, man?
Or people escaping from the prison. Well, that has become a norm now. I don't know, as you said, whether it's escape or people are allowed to leave. But it's very worrying that you have people in prison and they are allowed or they can be out of the facility relatively easily, because I suspect if the facility is properly guarded and leave or escape, as they say, with that. So that must be of some concern to us. We always remember the troubles in 2002 started with persons escaping from the Georgetown prison. So whenever a person escapes from the prison, there's some amount of anxiety in the society. Mark, are you there? We seem to have a problem.
All right. Yep. Slight technical difficulty. Sorry about that. We'll have to get Mr. Paul Slowe back. We must apologize, man. We must apologize. We must apologize to that for you guys. Hopefully, Mr. Paul Slowe will join us again soon. Hopefully, Mr. Paul Slowe will join us so that we can continue with our show. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So we'll take a quick break and be right back so we could straighten out our technical problems. Sorry about that, guys.
It's been a long time, it's been a long time, it's not a before time. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, it's not a before time. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, it's not a before time. Long time got them lang loji, now you got them bongolo. Long time got them lang loji, now you got them bongolo. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, it's not a before time. It's been a long time, it's been a long time, it's not a before time. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. Long time got them dirty dam, now you got them concrete road. This time a long time, this time a long time, this not a before time. This time a long time, this.
All right. Sorry about that. We're having some technical difficulties. We have Mr. Paul Slowe back again with us. Mr. Slowe, my apologies. We were talking about this, the regular getting away from the prisons, especially the Lusignan prison. I don't know. I was talking earlier about the accident with some folks, and this is the accident, and that is why I brought you here to explain this here for us in terms of the speed and the police chasing them and so forth. And from a former senior law enforcement officer, what is your take on this, please, Mr. Slowe, this accident? Yeah, Mr. Slowe, are you hearing us, please? Are you hearing me?
I don't know if you can hear me, but your video, you're frozen. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. It's probably at your end, but I'm hearing you loud and clear. What is your take on this accident here, sir?
Oh, well, I read the report in the news. That's all I know of what transpired. But from what I've read and from the video I've seen and the comments made, I think something is definitely wrong. First of all, let me express condolences to the family, friends, relative, parents of the two young persons who lost their lives in that tragic accident. Now, from a policing perspective, Mark, I happen to be the traffic chief on 2 occasions in Guyana. And in addition to that, I was the divisional commander of several senior divisions. I also held the post of Deputy Commissioner Operations. And I can tell you, at that time, I retired in 2010, a policy was developed. And I recall reading after in the news where ranks were admonished not to be engaged in a pursuit, especially this high-speed pursuit. My understanding, my knowledge, when I did the policy that was put out or put together was that in cases where a vehicle drove off on the and if they were heading in a particular direction, then you try to alert the police along that route that to be on the lookout. Maybe they should come out, set up a roadblock, and try to intercept the vehicle. But to be engaged in a high-speed pursuit, which led to the death of 2 young persons in this case, I think the authorities will have to do a lot of explaining to justify that. Because remember, again, this is based on what I've read. The person or the driver is not alleged to have come and said he was stopped, and this is the police report, he was stopped, and he decided to suddenly drive off. So there's maybe there was a suspicion that he might have been conveying or doing something illegal, but I don't think there is sufficient grounds to be engaged in this high-speed pursuit, which resulted in the death of these persons and tremendous damage to vehicles and all of that.
You know, I share similar view, the similar view that you are sharing here. I kind of like agree with you that better judgment should have been the order of the day on behalf of the police. They're the ones who should have made that judgment call to know that if you engage anyone, whether those two, the driver of that vehicle or any other driver, right, in a hot pursuit, you've got to exercise caution and good judgment that at that time of the day with heavy traffic, with such a high speed, obviously something is going to happen. There is a high possibility that something will happen and a serious accident could happen, as in this case. Um, so, what could the police have done? Just stop and say, well, hey, wait a minute, allow this car to go, call for some sort of proper backup, but do not pursue in that high speed chase. Would you agree?
Well, I think that is it. That is a policy. That was the policy. I think it still is. That in such a case, you try to get the first thing you try to do is to get the registration number of the vehicle involved. Because once you get the registration number, if you even if you are unable to intercept the driver, you can go to the licensing and office there. They'll be able to tell you who is the registered owner of the particular.
I must apologize. Tonight, it's a night that we are having internet problems. Maybe not at our end. I don't want to blame Mr. Slowe's end, but it's obviously some internet problems. My apologies. Hopefully, we'll get Mr. Slowe back again with us so that we can continue hearing his part. Sorry about that, Mr. Slowe. Continue, sir.
Yeah, I'm saying that I don't know why it's a policy now, but definitely that the fact, even if let's say for argument's sake that the policy is to pursue in circumstances like the one that unfolded, I would think that the authorities, the high command of the force must review that. This is not the first time we have had high pursuit and vehicle running off the road, persons injured, policemen injured, and the policemen must understand that they have to look after their safety as well. To be involved in such an activity, you're putting yourself in unnecessary danger. You're putting the public in unnecessary danger, and we have seen the disastrous result of such poor judgment. I would say, because I'm saying that based on the report that the police put out, there is no justification for this high-speed pursuit. You stop a vehicle and you didn't see anything illegal, nothing. All the person did once to stop, the person drove. It can be many reasons. Maybe he had an expired driver's license. Maybe he had no driver's license at all. And therefore, you don't have grounds to be involved in such a dangerous activity like an IC pursuit. I'm saying again that the correct thing to do should have been to try to get the license plate of the vehicle. Even if you don't get the license plate, you can get a description, because there must have been enough time for them to be able to give a description of the vehicle, a description perhaps of the occupants, and call ahead so that efforts can be made to perhaps set up a roadblock depending on how far away from the nearest station the person was. But there are procedures. And I have to again lament the fact that these procedures are there and people don't abide by them, and nothing happens. No one is held accountable when these things happen, and therefore that is why you have the problem. Only yesterday on my program, Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence, I had as my guest Mr. Clinton Conway, retired Assistant Commissioner of Police, and we spoke extensively about training. And here again, this is an example, I would think, of persons not being properly trained. And even if they are properly trained, then there is no, people operate with impunity. People are not held accountable for their actions. And once you have an arrangement like that, thing like this will unfortunately continue.
You know, Mr. Slowe, I've heard some people, and I've been watching reading some of the comments on social media, that the young man, the driver, should never have sped away. He should not have done that. He should have complied. Even if he had no papers, even if he had no license or whatever, he should have complied. He should have followed the law. That is what it's about. I agree with that. But in situations, yeah. Yeah, sorry. In situations like that, I can understand. Here's a young man, right? Here's a young man who probably panicked. The police, like you have said, Mr. Slowe, they saw his vehicle, his license plate, number, and all of these things. So they knew the vehicle. They knew the vehicle, right? And so even if that young man panicked and he drove away, there was still no justification to engage in such a high-speed chase. And look what happened. Now, I just want to take this time out, Mr. Slowe, to wish a speedy recovery to all of the people, all of those who were part of the accident, including the police men who are probably still in the hospital. Continue, sir. Anything else to add on this situation?
Yeah, I would like to also wish
and condolences to the families of the two young ones. But continue, Mr. Slowe.
Yes, I would like to also wish the persons who are injured, including the policemen, a speedy recovery. And I will hope that they reflect on their action and realize that to have engaged in such a dangerous pursuit was not the best thing. And they're lucky because given what has transpired, they could have been killed or injured as well. So I'm saying to those persons, I'm saying to other policemen, that you have to consider your own safety and the safety of other members of the public. And that is something that has attracted my attention because up to today, I saw a vehicle with siren on, and somehow people believe that once you have a siren on, then they assume that everyone else will hear you and give way to you. That is not necessarily so. So I want to take this opportunity to make the point that even when the siren is on the vehicle, the law dictates that you exercise caution. For example, if you're going to go into an intersection, you might have the red light, the others have the green light. The fact that you have a siren doesn't mean that you can just run through the red light like that. You have to approach the intersection with caution, and then you proceed through. But apparently this is not being taught to these drivers of the vehicle, so they believe that once they have the siren, that's it. They assume that everyone must hear the siren and clear the way. That is not how it should be done, and I want to urge you to make sure, and I'm speaking to persons driving, but I have to say emergency vehicles, not only police vehicles, but the ambulance. We're talking about the fire vehicles, because not so long ago, a couple of years ago, I think it was, there was an incident where a fire vehicle came on the wrong side of the road. I think it was somewhere in Vicinian Road, and seriously injured someone there. So you have to follow the law. There are protocols that you have to follow, and I urge you to make sure that you do that.
But also, Mr. Slowe, I agree with you. There are some reckless police drivers who believe that when they put the sirens on, they could still go at a fast rate, and people must just suddenly get in the corner, and then they put their heads out and they say, they curse, get in the effing corner, get in the corner.
Yeah, unfortunate.
I have seen that. One situation, I was at the airport. And Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago came in. And you know that road, now exiting the airport, you know it's a very narrow road.
Yes.
The sirens were behind me, you know, the sirens, and where do they expect for me to go?
They know where to go.
So I tried to position
just excuse me, let me plug my computer on. It's telling me the batteries are almost about to finish. One moment. I thought I had it plugged in.
That's okay, Mr. Slowe. Plug your battery in. So, and I'm sure you listen. So, plug your battery in. Yeah.
Yes, I'm now plugged in. Yes. Yes, as you say, you had no place to go. So where would they expect you to pull and go?
Exactly. So there
Sometimes
was
the road
nowhere
is
to
so
go.
narrow. Sometimes the road is so narrow. Sometimes the conditions of the road at the time might have a shoulder and all of that, and the vehicle is unable.
Exactly. There was nowhere to go. But you know what they did, right? Obviously, put up a big roadblock for me at Timeri police station there. Big roadblock for me. Where do they expect me? So the point that I'm saying is that police must exercise caution as well, especially when they put that siren on. Yes, road users and drivers should respect the police and their sirens. Don't get me wrong, but the police must also exercise good judgment. Not because they have the sirens on, it means that they can bully people. The other thing, Mr. Slowe, you there with us, right? All right, let's see what happens with Mr. Slowe. Mr. Slowe, are you there with us? We have lost him. So we're talking about the police sirens and so forth. I was just about to ask Mr. Slowe about, because maybe Guyana is the only country that I know of, and I've went to other countries, Berbice, Linden, Bartica, Essequibo, and so forth. I've went to other countries, according to that girl that thinks bad. You don't see police, you don't see journalists or so-called journalists or propagandists and so forth, whoever they are, with big sirens. You don't see a security agency, a security guard company using their sirens and forcing people off the roads. You don't see those sort of things. But hey, guess what? You see that in Guyana. You see those sort of things in Guyana. I don't know. Mr. Paul Slowe, we're waiting for him to return. I still have a couple more questions for him. For those of you who wish to call, we do have a number. If you're in Canada, that's the number. If you're in the UK, that's the number. Give us a quick call if you have a question for Mr. Paul Slowe. Mr. Slowe, go right ahead, please. I was talking about the fact that they have in Guyana people who are not law enforcement officers. They're ordinary security guards working with some security company, which is good that they're working, but they have sirens. Your take on that?
Well, after today, I saw a vehicle from a particular ministry with lights. They did not have siren, but they have these emergency lights. And I think this thing has been addressed. And I want to take this opportunity again to say it is illegal. The law makes it clear that sirens and emergency warning appliances are for emergency vehicles only. Emergency vehicles are described as police vehicles, ambulances, and the vehicles from the fire service. I know that the protocol, you would allow for diplomats and heads of state and that type of thing, but it seems now that every Tom, Dick, and Harry has a siren and flashing light on his vehicle and expects everyone to pull over and to give them the way. This is lawlessness. And I would say this: if the authorities want those persons to have siren, then change the law. And this is not something like the tint law where the minister have the authority to grant a waiver. No one has the authority to grant or to allow vehicles that are not emergency vehicles to be using siren. And this thing is very worrying, because what happens then? The people using the siren, I'm sure most of them, if not all, are not trained to drive and use the emergency warning appliances, as we have said earlier. So they just believe that they have the light flashing and have the siren on, and everyone must clear the way for them to do that. I recall sometime last year, I think it was, or perhaps the year before, I was driving along the East Coast, proceeding east. There is this vehicle coming behind with the siren. So I decided, well, look, I'm going to give way. And luckily, before I did so, I looked in the rearview mirror, only to discover that the vehicle was trying to pass on the inside. Was trying to pass, and that is not, I mean, that's it's so dangerous, because even when you're driving an emergency vehicle and the siren and warning lights are on, then the vehicles in front of you are supposed to pull to the left or near side of the road. That is what the law says, and then you pass on the regular right side to overtake. But when you have sirens on and then you're trying to pass on the inside, that's a recipe for disaster, because that is the side the drivers are expected to pull. So I'm saying that to have these people driving around with these warning appliances and they're not trained, first of all, it's illegal. They should not be doing that. It's chaotic and it should not be allowed to continue. I will call on the traffic chief and all of those forces. I know the traffic chief made a statement some time ago about the illegality of the use of the siren, but just making a statement I don't believe is sufficient. They have to do something now to make sure that the laws are complied with.
You know, that's exactly what happens. The traffic chief, something pops up. The traffic chief makes a statement because it affected somebody who reported to somebody higher. The tint law. We saw a traffic officer pulling people over and demanding that they remove their tints. That is according to him, that is above the law, the lawful. The authority to have heavily tinted vehicles in the front and so forth. I saw a particular guy being pulled over. You could tell that they're angry about being pulled over. You can tell one other guy said, "Look, I need my tint because I have a license. I'm a holder of a licensed firearm. I need to leave my gun in my vehicle." Your thoughts on that, Mr. Slowe? That particular statement, and the police did.
There's no justification, because that explanation is no justification. You want to leave your firearm in the vehicle. The firearm should not be left in the vehicle. I could tell you, when I was a commander, if someone came to me or there was an incident and a person said, "Well, I left the firearm in the vehicle," that was grounds to revoke the firearm, because then you would have perhaps said that you want it for your personal protection. Now, if you want it for your personal protection, then one will assume that you're going to have it with you or nearby all the time. But if you're leaving it in the vehicle and then you're going to make a claim that you want your vehicle tinted because you want to leave your firearm in the vehicle, I believe I would have initiated steps to have that firearm revoked, because that is being extremely careless to leave a firearm unattended in a vehicle in a manner that the post would have described. Now, this thing about tint, let's understand this. I spoke about it on one of my programs, and to say again that the law does not prevent anyone from having tint. Let's understand this clearly. The regulation, not the law. Regulation, I think, is 103, does not prevent someone from having tint. In layman's language, what the regulation says, that no one should have a vehicle that is so tinted as to prevent the person from outside of identifying the person on the inside of the vehicle. Now, as you would realize, that is very subjective. So you have the issue that one man might say, "Well, yes, I can recognize the person inside." The next person might well say, "Well, look, it has to do with perhaps his eyesight, it has to do with the lighting, it has to do with all of that," right? So the law was, I would think, not properly drafted. And then what happened thereafter? We went through a process, and because at the time when the law was drafted, when the proposal was made, we did not recognize that there was an instrument that could measure the density of the tint. And when we discovered that, we then made approaches to the Ministry of Home Affairs, the minister at the time, Mr. Gadra, and said, "Look, we have an instrument now that we can measure the tint. So let's decide on what amount of light penetration that we would want." And as I said in the previous program, that was a very transparent process. I, as the traffic chief at the time, worked along with the now speaker, Mr. Mansour Nadir, who was at the time, I think,
the Minibus Association president.
Correct. He was with the Minibus Association at the time as one of the executives, and we measured several tints, the density of several tints, and agreed that what we should have is 65% light penetration. But and we agreed to that. But the other steps were never taken to have that written into the law. So if you were to check the regulation now, it still says that the person should be able to identify the person on the inside. And that is where the issue lies. So people put on tint, some people tell you they get permit, because even the permit that people go to the minister and the acquire, when we added the discussion, extensive discussion, the intention was never to be able to, this thing came about sometime, I think 1998, 1999, on today, 2022, to be given permits for things. That was never the intention. What happened? The permit should have been given, or the waiver should have been given to persons who, at the time when the law came into effect, already had the vehicles in the country. And we identified the different things. For example, we talk about factory tents. And therefore, the vehicles that were in the country with factory tint, quite rightly and quite reasonably, had to get time to bring themselves in order. And the discussion went along the line that you would give them 3 months. They would get a waiver, and they were expected to comply. In other words, get the glass changed within 3 months. And we went forward to say that if the person could have proven that within the first 3 months they made reasonable efforts and they could not have gotten the glass, then that would have been extended for a second 3 months. So maximum 6. That was the way it went. So, and to take it further, just to the benefit of your viewers and your listeners, the system should have gone a bit further to ensure that after a particular date, no vehicle would have been allowed into the country that did not meet the standard and requirement. The custom people were to acquire the same type of meter, and when a vehicle came and if it was measured and it did not comply with the set standard, then that vehicle had to fix itself before it was released in the country. But all of those things just went through the window. So you have this lawlessness now where everyone with foolish excuses, that they use the excuse at the time that, look, because of the tropical nature of the country and the sun, they want him to take care of the dashboard and to keep the vehicle cooler. All kinds of arguments were put forward, and these things were discussed, and we arrived at that position. And it's very disappointing to see that this many years down the road, you still have an issue dealing with tint, because one of the main problems I see is what we call selective enforcement. Some people operate with impunity, including police ranks who can be driving with tinted vehicles. And I'm talking about personal vehicles, because we recognize the nature of certain security duties might very well dictate that policemen have vehicles that are tinted. You might have witnesses you want to protect. That's fine. So let's understand it clearly. That is fine. But we're talking about policemen with their private vehicles not complying with the law. So therefore, you have a situation, if the policeman is not complying with the law, he or she might be reluctant to enforce the law because they themselves are breaking the law. So that is the issue you have.
Lawless police, some lawless folks who believe that because they have connections that they can drive around with a firearm, they can drive around with heavily tinted vehicles. And some of them, if you look at their ages, they're like nearly 21, 22, and they have a license to carry gun, and they believe they're above the law. But let us touch briefly on the position of the guy in the police force. Remains the same. No commissioner of police have been appointed. Your colleague is still, he's not acting, but he's performing the duties. Does that bother you, that there's such confusion in the hierarchy of the guy in the police force, sir?
It should bother any right-thinking and law-abiding citizen, because if you don't have stability at the top, that is likely to reflect down the line. You have a person there who is carrying out the functions for well over 1.5 years, and I don't think that is the best thing in terms of the stability at the top of the force, and especially when allegations are made that people below him are doing anything to undermine and undercut. So it reeks of unprofessionalism. It speaks to a situation that is totally out of hand and should have been dealt with a long time ago. Unfortunately, the powers that be, apparently they want the confusion to remain. They have not sought to fix it. And it was an easy fix because there was a police service commission, there was an opposition leader, and all that was required was for the necessary consultation to be done and make the appointment. But for some reason, those appointments were not made. I want to remind persons when we talk about appointments, we talk about the appointment of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioners of Police, which is the prerogative of the President. All the Constitution says is that the President must consult with the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, who must first consult with the other members, and then he consults with the opposition leader, and then the appointment is made. But if you're talking about stability in the force, I think it is critical that you have persons who can sit there, qualified persons who can sit there in a stable environment, not having to look over the shoulder, not having to feel that tomorrow they're going to be told, well, sorry, you're no longer required or something like that. So it's the security of the tenure we're looking at.
All right, it certainly looks bad. Quickly, what's your take on persons being charged because of something they may have said on social media that hurt the feelings of some? They suffering from emotional distress. Your take on that aspect of the cybercrime law, Bill?
Well, it seems my concern about it is, I mean, the law is the law, but my concern is the selective application of the law, because I have seen several persons charged under the Cybercrime Act within a very short space of time. And as I indicated some time ago, I made a complaint. The Attorney General made some remarks on the night of the 29th of June, 2029. He referred to the members, myself and other members of the commission, as anarchists. He called me a Bajan. And then he went on to say that persons like myself have no place in a society governed by the rule of law. That is what he said on NCN on the 29th of June. I made a complaint on the 15th of October 2021 to the police about that. I submitted a statement telling them how I felt having listened to what the Attorney General said. I indicated in the statement that I was advised by my attorney that the statements violated the Cybercrime Act and the Cybercrime law, and therefore the report was made. A transcript of the program was provided. The offending part of the program was provided to the police. And up to now, this is October the 15th, the report was made. And today is February the 3rd, 2022. October 15, 2021, the report was made. And February the 3rd, 2022, I'm not aware that anything has been done. So my issue is the selective nature. If the law is the law, and you say people who call people names to be brought before the court on charges of violating the law, then the law should apply to everyone. You cannot or you should not have selective enforcement, which seems to be the case in this instance.
All right, selective enforcement, it happens all the time. I know of opposition persons who have made complaints. They're still awaiting some sort of justice. Some sort of justice, but people who are connected to the installed regime, they get swift justice. And so opposition folks or folks who perceived to be supporters of the opposition are dragged at the CID headquarters. They're dragged in front of the courts and all these manner of things. You have been charged with other stuff. What's the situation with those charges and you attending court, sir?
Well, they charge, we were charged on the 20th of May 2021. Myself, some retired senior officers who were asked by the Commissioner of Police to assist the force with the reviewing of the police standing order. The standing order is like the Bible of the force. It speaks to almost every issue. We were asked to assist with that process, and we did so. At some stage during that, during our work, the force decided to pay us a stipend. And when the issue arose with the commission, and they wanted to get rid of the commission because I did not, or the commission did not acquiesce to request by the president to have certain persons promoted. Then they wanted to get rid of the commission, and those trumped up charges were brought. Fraud, contrary to common law, that is what it is. I was abroad when the charges were filed. I subsequently returned on the 12 to attend court on the 15th of October. The world saw when I turned up to attend court. Assistant Superintendent Krishndat Ramana from the Special Organized Crime Unit was there waiting at the Georgetown Magistrate Court to arrest me, to take me to court. The very issue that I had appeared, I returned to the country to answer. They were there, and we know that he was sent. He got instruction to come. The idea was to embarrass me, and then they attempted to. What they said, they were arresting me to read the caution after charge. So I had to lecture to them and tell them caution after charge is not read when the matter is already before the court. So it was clear that they did not know. Well, perhaps they knew and just wanted to embarrass. So I went. Charges were read: the conspiracy to commit fraud, and then they read 3 sexual assault charges where it was alleged that I touched a female police on her leg inappropriately on 3 occasions, 3 consecutive meeting days at the same time. Those matters came up not so long ago, and the matters have been all put until the 31st of March this year. A long postponement, the 31st of March, 2022, those matters will be called again.
And the prosecutor, are they ready, or are they just asking for time and more? Because that's the regular thing for them. Ask for more time, especially when they have no evidence. But what's the reason for the
the disappointing thing is that, as I've said, there's many things so disappointing in this whole matter. First of all, you charge someone, in this case, myself, and no one ever put any allegation to me. I was never called in, nothing at all. I was abroad all the time. And then that is since May. When I appeared in October, they're still not ready to pursue, and that is the Soku prosecutor, is not ready to proceed with the charge. And then the CID people with the other cases, since again May, and they're not ready in October to proceed. And when we came up again on the last occasion, same thing, they're not ready. They're not ready to proceed with these charges. And I'll straight you to have you go in there day after day. In my case, they expect that it's going to cost you money because you have to travel to come to the country and all of that. So I'm in there for the long run. Like, I'm not giving up. I intend to clear my name. I am extremely confident, very confident that the outcome is going to be favorable. But having said that, I always caution other people, and I caution myself, that in this system, one can never know. I refer to Colin Bailey. You know, Colin Bailey is the former police sergeant who was charged for the murder of his wife. He spent almost 5 years in prison. And then at the hearing before the High Court, the judge said that there was no evidence linking Colin Bailey to the crime. And the prosecutors agree. So you have a man who is charged, and let me again go through this for persons who may not know. When a person is charged for an offense like that, a preliminary inquiry is murder charge. So the magistrate will have a preliminary inquiry to determine if there's sufficient evidence to commit this person to stand trial at the High Court. So they went through that process. He was committed. Now, once you are committed, the papers are sent to the DPP's chamber. The depositions, all those statements are sent to the DPP's chambers. They will now review the depositions, and they now commit to stand at the High Court. So we are saying that with all of that, yet still at the end of the day, the judge remarked that there was never ever any evidence to link Bailey to this murder charge. But there he is. It's 5 years. In this case, the prosecutor agreed. So something is definitely wrong with the system. And therefore, I say, I have faith. Let me understand. I have faith in the system. I have faith in the judicial system. But these issues cause you to stop and think whether your faith is misplaced or not. But I am confident, I have faith as I sit here now, I am confident that the system will work the way it is intended to work, and justice will prevail in the end.
All right, justice will prevail in the end. You have a lot of faith in a system that has failed our people for the most part. This is not to say that all of them in the judicial system are there to fail people. Some of them want to do their job, but a bulk of them are being very vindictive. They're political, and they are just basically one-sided. I have seen people get bail $300,000, $400,000 for not so serious crimes, but others who commit serious crimes are being sent home without any sort of bail and these things. It's kind of like an unfair justice system in Guyana. There's no equal rights and justice. But Mr. Paul Slowe, we all understand what's going on with you as what's going on with these folks. Mr. Lowenfield, Mr. Mingo and Miss Roxanne Myers. We all know because every time they don't want the case to be heard so that these people can be set free and to show the world that they were indeed being persecuted by elements of the installed PPP regime and others who are facing these sort of trumped up charges. I thank you so much for your time. I thank you so much for explaining and giving your opinion about this accident, this recent accident that involved a police vehicle, a high chase on that road at that time of the day, the narrow road. There are pedestrians, there are drivers. I don't know what went in the head of those police to pursue that driver and that little girl that was in the car. Some folks are saying 16-year-old, she should not have been there. I don't know. I don't want to get into that because the law in Guyana, I think 16 is kind of like an adult. It's something that is questionable. They should up that to 18. But your closing remarks, please, Mr. Paul Slowe.
Well, again, in closing, I would like to express condolences to the family of the dead persons, to wish the injured ranks and other injured persons a speedy recovery. And I would hope that the policemen, especially those who are driving, and the authorities will use this as the catalyst to ensure that proper systems are put in place and that this type of dangerous activity is not undertaken. Now, let's understand there are so many factors, because when you talk about high-speed chasing and driving in certain manner, you have to be properly trained. It's not only training in the normal driving, but they are special courses designed to equip these people with the necessary skills for this type of dangerous activities. And I'm sure that these persons will not have been exposed to this type of training. So I urge policemen and other drivers of emergency vehicles, think of your own safety, because in this case, the policemen are fortunate that they were not killed, but they could have been killed as well. So they need to make sure that they are always aware of the dangers in not only high-speed chase, but dangers in driving generally, and make sure that they drive defensively. So that would be my closing remark. And not only when we talk about defensive driving, is not only vehicles, but all of us practice and defensive driving. We have people in Guyana on the roadway who are too aggressive in their driving, and that is why we have these accidents, fatal and other accidents. And I'm sure that if some caution and common sense should prevail, we're not going to have these many dangerous or these many accidents which result in loss of life, loss of limbs, damage to vehicles. Some years ago I did a study of the cost of each accident and the cost to the economy when I was a traffic chief, and it is staggering. It is staggering, the cost of every single accident. Because remember, we don't produce parts and all of these things in this country. So even if an ordinary damage accident, it is negative impact on the economy. So I want to urge all to be safe on the roads and all categories, not only drivers, pedestrian, motorcyclists, pedecyclists. We all need to people who come on animal-drawn vehicles. We all need to make sure that we exercise the necessary caution, common sense, care, courtesy when we drive on the road, or when we
Thank you
use
so
the
much.
road. Not only drive, but when we use.
Thank you so much for your time, former, a retired assistant commissioner of police, a man who probably should have been commissioner of police, but because of political interferences, political spite, political vindictiveness, you retired at the level of assistant commissioner of police. How is your show coming along, sir? Your Talk to the People show. I'm sure you have a tremendous amount of advice to give to Guyanese and non-Guyanese. How is your show, sir?
Yeah, it's going well. It's going well. I mean, that I've been receiving for your viewers and your audience. The show is named Speaking Out, Exposing Corruption and Incompetence. It is aired on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. That's Guyana time, 10 a.m. New York or Eastern Standard Time, on Facebook, on YouTube. And basically, as the name of the program implies, we are speaking out, exposing corruption, exposing incompetence, and we use the opportunity as well to educate and to inform. Yesterday program, I had as my guest Assistant Commissioner retired Clinton Conway, and we spoke about training. And I'm sure from the reaction that we got, lots of people found it very, very informative. As a matter of fact, people have been reaching out to say that we should have a part 2. And we're thinking about having a part 2 on Wednesday. So we'll work on that. So I encourage you to follow the program. Right now, if you go to YouTube, you're going to find I have had 7 episodes so far. They're all on YouTube for you to look at in your own leisure. And just subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you will get the notification when the program go live, or like the page, and you will get the notification when the page goes live, and you can follow and make a comment, because I look at the comments and suggestion. I take suggestions and answer. So if suggestions are made about particular subjects that are to be addressed, then I'm going to do the research, and that is going to be addressed. And I'm hoping as we go along, I can have many more experienced persons to join and to share their knowledge and experience with the members of the public and members of the force. So thank you for this opportunity to state that.
Again, just because you give your show a plug, and I think people should watch it, you owe me one final question. Here it is. Nigel Hoppy, the guy who sits there performing the duties of Commissioner of Police, is about to go off on retirement. We have a couple of qualified senior police officers who should take up that position. Qualified, honest, professional ones. They have a lot of them who are preparing to take over as well, who have failed polygraph tests. And when they failed the polygraph test, a couple of important questions were asked. Whether they have been any sort of affiliation with drug lords or taken drug monies, they failed. Other serious questions, whether they have taken a bribe as a police officer, they have failed. A lot of them, maybe you know of some of those very ones who have failed. What is your prediction as to who will become the next commissioner of police of the Guyana Police Force?
Well, Mark, I don't like to get into predictions. Oppie is there, as you indicated. From my knowledge, Oppie is to retire on the 1st of January 2023. So he's into his final stretch. Depending on how many days leave he has, he will be proceeding, because they come back, he'll proceed into retirement, pre-retirement leave, and then he goes into retirement. I have said on my program, the next senior person in the police force is Deputy Commissioner Paul Williams, who has appears to have been targeted by the government when the government came into power in 2020. Shortly thereafter, he was sent off on 200 and something days leave, And when he resumed, he was then put to the unit. So he is the next senior person. After Williams, the next senior person is Assistant Commissioner and Assistant Commissioner Clifton Ekin. And I have said repeatedly that Clifton Ekin is not qualified academically or otherwise to be the commissioner. Rumors of it that he seems to be the preferred choice of the government to be appointed. I think that will be a disaster to appoint someone who is not competent to hold that post. And more than that, Iken is what? Should be 53 plus at this stage. He is 53 plus. The mandatory retirement age is 55. And I asked a question in one of the programs. How can you be thinking of appointing someone who's 53 years old to the post of Commissioner of Police? One who's not, well, let me put it this way. How can you be thinking of appointing someone who's 53 who's not qualified to be put in the post of Commissioner of Police? I know in the past, Larry Lewis and others have been extended beyond 55. In the case of Larry Lewis, to 60, but those people were qualified. And I can say this without any fear of contradiction. The culture of the police force is not very kind to persons who have reached the retirement age. I think that you should, especially if you're not qualified, you should move on. So those are the three most senior persons in the force. And of course, the appointment doesn't have to be made from the most senior persons. There have been instances in the past where persons who are felt to be qualified for the position, even though they might not be the most senior person, who are put to lead the force. The force at this time especially needs someone who's qualified and who can command the respect of the members of the force and command the respect of members of the public. You cannot at this stage, at this critical stage, think about putting someone who will have things dangling over his head. Questions are asked about integrity. Questions are asked about your association with criminal elements. You cannot have that at this time. Sorry. And if you were to do that, then you're saying to us that you're not interested, you're not serious about the security of the state, you're not serious of the security of the citizens at large. So that is my take on that. RP, I suspect, given all that has happened since RP has been performing the functions, I think he's very anxious to move on. And anyone in this position would be very anxious. I guess he just counting down the days. He will know, because by now he would have been told how many days leave he has prior to retirement. So he will know exactly when. And again, why should there be secrecy on an issue like that? Why the secrecy? The person who's performing the functions of commissioner is due to retire January 1st, 2023. The public should know. He's the public officer. The public should know that the commissioner retired. Then he goes into retirement leave from a particular time. Even if you don't know what the process, that is how people get confidence in the whole system. He is to retire. Even if you want to keep him, tell people that, well, he's due to retire, but because of his competence and because you have people who are capable of taking over, you are going to keep him on for a little while longer. They did that with Larry Lewis, 2 years in the first instance, and then they move on. In Larry Lewis' case, it's not that they did not have persons competent to take over, but they were not comfortable with the people. They became comfortable with Larry Lewis. But I'm saying that to say that this thing should be no secret. The fact that the most senior police officer is due to retire on the 1st of January 2023 should be made known to the public.
You know, one of the things that, yeah, and the people that the installed PPP regime seem to be comfortable with and want to install as maybe commissioner of police and deputy commissioner of police and so forth, those are the individuals who have lots of question marks hanging over their heads. In fact, some of the embassies, the foreign missions there in Guyana, have copies of the polygraph tests that were taken. At some time very soon, I will let the audience know who those individuals are. They can read between the lines, but I'll specifically talk about the questions asked during the polygraph test. And those questions, when they asked, the individuals that the PPP want to take over as commissioner of police and deputy and maybe other stuff are the ones who failed the polygraph test. They failed all of the questions, from whether they have taken an inducement from drug lords, they have taken bribes, they have been involved in questionable activities. They have failed it in a distance. And I'm not just talking about some who may have failed an ordinary common entrance test and got maybe 15 or 20 or 27 or 37 out of 100. I'm not talking about that. You spoke of some not being academically qualified. However, it's a dangerous situation right now in Guyana with the hierarchy of the Guyana police force. Not all of them, but I'm not hearing the name of, I believe he is Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Simeon McBean, someone who is beyond qualified.
Well, let me say this, Mark. There are lots who I feel are qualified, including the gentleman that you called. But one of the reasons why I stay away from mentioning those names is because how the system goes now with the vindictiveness, you're putting a target on their back. And I don't want to do those guys that disfavor by putting a target on their back, because I'm sure if I'm to call names of persons who I feel are qualified, then the people are going to work to prove to me, perhaps, and to prove to others that they're not qualified. So I don't want to put them in that uncomfortable position. But I can say, without any fear of contradiction, the likes of Brutus, whom the Chief Justice found to be self-serving. Imagine that in a matter that was brought by Senior Superintendent Calvin Brutus against the Police Service Commission, the Chief Justice, ruling on June 28, 2021, said that she found Senior Superintendent Calvin Brutus to be self-serving. Now, if you look up the meaning of self-serving, it would tell you immediately that the person is not qualified to hold even the office that he's holding. But yes, he has kept on, he has been kept on in that position. That is the ridiculous nature of what is going on. The court, he took the action. He is the person who is the applicant. He went to court. And the court then said, look, I find you to be self-serving, right? In other words, he's not looking into the interests of the organization. He was doing things to promote himself. He was doing things to benefit himself. And the court so pronounced. And yes, he is there. So that, I think, is an indication of how dysfunctional the system is.
Very dysfunctional indeed, Mr. Paul Slowe. Thursday evening, 22 minutes after 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 22 minutes after 10 in Guyana. But I will be watching as to, we all know who they want to appoint as the head of the Guyana Police Force, maybe deputy and so forth and so on. But it is going to be difficult for those who have failed a polygraph test in terms of failing about their association with drug lords and all these different things, to get the cooperation of international law enforcement agencies. Very difficult, and it is going to be bad for the country. But before we go, Robeson Ben, who sits there as the Minister of Home Affairs, allegedly said that the administration wants a police commissioner who can work along with the administration. How dangerous is that statement? Let us assume that that is exactly what he said. That's according to a report I just read, sir.
Well, the police should be independent. The police should be independent and operate professionally, while the system allows for the minister to deal with policy. When it comes to operational matters, that should be the preserve of the Commissioner of Police. But I'm aware that in recent times being since August 2020, a lot of the decisions are being made by the politicians. Simple things like postings or transfers of senior officers, all are made by the politicians. I am aware that, for example, matters of persons arrested and the question of persons being sent on bail, that decision has to be made by politicians. And I say again, that even and you know, again, when I speak on my program, Mark, I tell people don't necessarily just listen to what I say. Check the records. Check the records. I made reference to Soku and Karimbash, and the fact that the Attorney General called out Soku for not taking action against the former finance minister. The vice president shortly thereafter did likewise call out Soku. And when I did an interview with Travis Chase, I told him, I said, the fact that the Attorney General is calling out the head of Soku, the fact that the vice president is calling out the head of Soku, and I said, I am sure that within a short space of time, Soku will find something to give to Winston Jordan. And therefore, shortly after Mr. Jordan was arrested, and people called me to say, Malik, you're clairvoyant. I said, no, I ain't clairvoyant, but you could see these things. That is the level of interference that you have, and that is the level of unprofessionalism on the part of officers, many officers in the force. Karimbash being the head of Soku, an agency that is not qualified to lead. I spoke about Brutus, same thing. Ikin, same thing, and that is what you have. And you know, talking about the commissioner's appointment, I must mention this because Ikin is the one. Ikin said, right, quite publicly prior to the 2020 election, that the vice president promised that once the PPP came into power, he will be appointed commissioner. And he boasted of all the changes that he would make, who he's going to send where and he's going to send here. He, in his own words, said so. So that's
wait a minute. He said that, Hicken said that publicly?
He said it publicly among trainees, among people in the force. There's no secret. I mean, the people are very reluctant or fearful of making statements, but ask them quietly,
of course, he may want to deny that. And so I just want to say then that there is this rumor that he said these things amongst the trainees and other colleagues of the police force, and it is alleged that he said this since we are on radio, and you know people.
Yes.
So I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying that he probably didn't.
I never heard him saying it. Let me understand this clearly. Let's clarify. I never heard him saying it, but it is alleged by many persons. It was not secret. It's broadcast all over the force in circles. That it was alleged that he was making these statements. It was alleged that he had even identified who was going to go where. The commissioner at the time, James, it is alleged that he said James will go to some area. He was going to move this person here, and he's going to move that person there. And when the government changed, some of those same postings or those same changes
became a reality.
Became reality.
So I just want to make it clear that it is alleged that that is what he said.
Yes, I agree. That's I never heard. Let me make it clear. I never heard him saying that, but people came to me to say, "Look, I heard him saying that." So it's an allegation.
Sure.
And I've said repeatedly, there are other allegations, and the way to deal with allegations is to have them properly investigated. Let the allegations be investigated to prove or to disprove the allegation, but to leave them, I mean, it's an injustice to even the individual that an allegation is made, and people tend to believe what is said. You don't do an investigation, and that cloud remains hanging over the person's head. So I believe that in this case, the fact that such an allegation was made, it is in the interest of that person for proper investigation to be done and to clear his name or to confirm the allegation.
All right. Mr. Paul Slowe, I just thank you so much for your honesty. You're brave to come, even though you're charged, frivolous charges against you, being persecuted by members of this installed regime, going after you for obvious reasons. We all know why. We all know that you're not guilty. But I'm glad that you're brave still, even after those charges, to be here with us. Some folks have gotten charges and we don't hear from them any longer. Some people are cut out differently, and I'm glad that you are strong enough. But let me just say that when I reveal the questions asked for those folks who took the polygraph test and failed it, those senior police officers who took the polygraph test and failed it. I will also tell you guys who passed it. And I will say that the head of SOCU, Kareem Bakch, I'm going to reveal exactly the position with his test, his polygraph test, whether he passed or he failed. I'll talk about Higgins too, whether he passed or he failed. I'll talk about others. But thank you so much for your time, Mr. Paul Slowe. And thank you for your bravery, sir. Stay strong.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Good night. All right, Mr. Paul Slowe there for you guys. We have gone over time. I know management is going to be after me again tomorrow morning. Don't forget, tune in to the mid-morning show that we have. That's with Gabby and DJ Selector Andre and the crew, with Earl and Josh. Tune into tomorrow's program. I think they're having a popular guy from New York City, Guyanese guy by the name of Pablo G. He's going to be on tomorrow. But for now, I've got to go. And I read this earlier. New research confirms glaring shortcomings of PPP. Glaring, and this is President Biden is saying there. New research confirms glaring shortcomings of PPP. Now, it's for those folks who want to understand what PPP is, but I'm not going to explain it to them. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Thank you all so much for staying with us. And again, condolences to the family members of these folks, these young people who died, and speedy recovery to all the injured folks, including the policemen. This should not happen. Good judgment should always prevail. Even when you're pulled over by a police, don't panic. Don't take the chance and speed away and then cause a high-speed chase. And even the policemen, sometimes good judgment is always the best option. Good judgment. In this case, I believe that there should have been good judgment. And allow the driver to go. You'll get him. Let him go. You'll get him. This, I'm not basically, putting all the blame on the police. But what I'm saying is that good judgment on the part of the police should have been exercised. And there's a high possibility that maybe this would not have been the outcome. I don't know. We've got to pray for Guyana. Lots of things are happening with these installed people. Lots and lots of things. Corruption galore. Drugs galore again. Guns galore again. We're not hearing much, if any, at all anything about the guns. The guns found where? In Senegal. The guns found in Senegal. We're not hearing anything about that. Good night, guys. We'll be back tomorrow, same place, same time, but pray for that country. I have a saxophonist going to be on, Ariana. She's from Jamaica. She's going to be on tomorrow. And I have Paul Court. He's also going to be on. We'll have an interesting program tomorrow. God bless you, and God bless our beautiful, beautiful country. Pray. Pray for that country. So long.
So, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Right about now, I'm living in Guyana right about now. I aim in Guyana no more. I think I will go and nhà mình hủy nữa anh ấy có lại ốt anh ấy có cho bò mít anh ấy có relax mít mình có ai em bên ngày anh nó mù ai em bên ngày anh nó ai có bò mít right about no anh living in Guyana right about no I like I am bên Guyana no more I think I có nhà mình hủy nữa anh ấy có lại ốt anh ấy có cho bò mít anh ấy có relax mít mình có ai em bên ngày anh nó mù ai em bên ngày anh nó ai có bò mít I fly now có bò mít things cheap there